Even lost Gertrude and Larry. Yeah. Well, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's had a good week, a good day, hot day. Very hot today. I'm telling you. I'm going to read over the announcements. We got some of them. It's already, the revivals, it's over tonight, so I'm not going to go to it. But we have Saturday. Well, Friday night we have our practice and walk through for Ladies' Day, which is Saturday at 9 a.m. And hopefully everybody can be here. Hopefully we have a big crowd. I can tell you one thing. I have been at the practices. I have watched the skit. I have listened to the music. And if you don't come, you're missing out. You will truly miss out. It's the message is great, the songs are great, the skit is great. The message of the skit is great, but it's also got some humor to it, so it's very good. Okay, and then all that's Saturday from 9 to 12, I think, 9 a.m. And starting on the upcoming events, September the 9th, Ladies Fall Bible Study from 10 a.m. to noon. That's with Ruth. She'll be here. And then she's going to have it on Facebook. And the title is When Your Way Isn't Working. Then I think she's doing every other Saturday, so she doesn't tie up every Saturday for everybody. I think she's skipping a Saturday in between. And then October the 8th, we have our Sunday night concert with the David Melton family. And the concerts that we've had have been awesome. They've been great. I've been here for all of them, and if you missed it, you missed it. I mean, they were excellent, and I'm sure that this one will be great also. And then January the 5th through the 7th, TCTC. The early bird sign up is from August the 1st to October the 2nd, and it's $35. And I have been going for years. Not a lot of sleep, but it's a very, very enjoyable time. You see a lot of young people that's hearing a lot about the Lord. And they're still collecting for the supplies for their trip to D.C. in October, or Roanoke and D.C. They're still looking for tarps and gloves, big bottles of water, and McDonald's gift cards. And I seen the youth this evening. They left here at 6, heading to Lake Park to finish up that park that they've been working on down there. So hopefully they have a good evening and get that finished. They were building a ramp somewhere, and it had to be close down there. I didn't ask Alan where it was at, but I think it was 115. I think he said. Yeah, they moved it on Monday. And I think when he left, he said they were going to move a ramp, but I didn't ask him where at, but I'm sure it was close down that way. Okay, I think that's all the announcements that we have. So we'll do the opening song. Will be 589, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. And you just want to do 1 and 3? 1 and 3. Okay, number 2, I did this for my buddy, 9:16. What a day that'll be. And both verses, you have to sing them both. We had to do that for Brandon and Paul, Sam. They all like that song. I do too. I like it a lot. Okay, we're going to do for our prayer song, it's going to be number 800, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. If you have any prayer requests, just Lucas will collect them. Lucas will collect the prayer requests for us, and he'll bring them in. Thank you, Lucas. Okay, we're going to sing 800, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, 1 and 3. Okay, to our prayer list tonight is Helen, not feeling well. Helen Steele, she's not feeling well. She's not here tonight, and that's unusual. So I know she's not feeling well. And we had a couple that we added Sunday night, Stacy Smith, and I think she's doing better. Okay. She got to go home from the ER. And then Karen Webb, she was added Sunday night. And then we have Lisa Israel, gallbladder problems. Marge Hicks, Emily Howard, Isaiah Horton, and Dorothy Deal. I think that's the one that Brother Doug put on for the Meals on Wheels, that he said that they was needing prayer for sure. Yeah, I'm going to add him to that. I got a little bit of an update Alan had back there earlier. Crystal Brook and her family battling cancer for several years and has to do chemo every 3 weeks. We have an unspoken. Donna Taylor has COVID and confusion. Carly Osborne, she had her wisdom teeth took out today. I seen the text for that she had them removed, but I haven't seen anything since then from anybody. Yeah. Larry Stiltner was having his scan on tomorrow, not today. It was on Thursday. Don Wimmer, he's a resident of the Commonwealth Assisted Living. He said he's not doing well. Lindsay Mullins, it's Darlene and Scott Mullins' daughter. She's going to be traveling this week for work. Johnny Goss had a medical emergency. Tommy Stewart, cancer. Tom Brooks had a heart attack. The family of Thomas Hart. Anita Blackwell has an aneurysm on the brain. John Ellswick, kidney failure at UVA. And I think Doug and Melinda put those on here. Gary Sloan was to have oral surgery today. Ada for her diabetes. You moved on me. You were over there. Need to pray for Ada. Need to pray for Ada and her diabetes. That's a rough disease, I can tell you with experience. Not me, but my daughter. Mike and Terry Lee. Kylie Powell. McKinley Dales. She was going on her first mission on Monday. Joyce Owens. That's Gail's mom. Gail Stiltner's mom, needing prayers. That's all I have right now. Does anybody have anything else other than Kelly Queen? I know he had a stroke yesterday evening, last night. Alan said today, I know they gave an update. They did I'm not sure what it's called, but they had to cut a hole so his brain, the swelling would relieve some of the swelling. But they said that he was communicating some. He's on a ventilator, but he was giving them thumbs up and thumbs down with one hand. Okay. So he spiked the temperature and they had to resedate him. But earlier today he was giving his family thumbs up and thumbs down some of the questions that they asked. Okay, does anybody have anybody else? We did earlier, but we didn't today. I'll put him on here. Sunday night, Jeannie said that he was doing okay, but he was having a lot of pain. Jeff Daniels had shoulder surgery and bicep repair last Friday, and Jeannie said that he was having significant pain Sunday.
Sister Helen's still, she's watching on Facebook.
Oh, is she? Helen's watching. Hi, Helen. Does anybody have anybody else? Okay, Brother Gary, would you say the blessing on the prayer list, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege to come in the middle of the week, fellowship, praise you. And so be with all those that mentioned in items that you wanted to know of. On the need of prayer, those who are traveling, lots of other ones. Testing, procedure, working a great deal. We know you're in a great position. You can heal each one of these praise will do your will. In this country that we live in, we have a presidential debate tonight and carrying on the campaign for the 24 election. It's the way for us as a country that we'll get out and vote our hearts and hopefully and prayerfully through this process we'll do your work and your will. In the Lord's church here around the country, around the world. And it will be a shining light in the lives. All those who hear the word will obey the word. So the heart of the Lord's church is set before you ask us to pray for our leaders of our country and all of the leaders of the church that we might live peaceful on this earth. And go down a few verses and find out that also that God does not want anyone to perish, but all to come to not only the knowledge, but no need of the truth. Bless us as we go through this service this day. Things we ask in Christ's name.
Amen. Okay. Brother Matt Griffey asked me, was this one going to be on the boat? And I told him no. This is going to be on a donut. That's what it's going to be on. I know when Brother Bob preaches, he always says that you can see God's work everywhere. You can, if you picked up a rock, it should say made by God. And I'm sorry. But this is sort of what it's just a different way to get people to see what the Lord did. So this is about a doctor, professor in a Western United States in a college. All the kids, well, I'll read it, but I'll give you a little overview. All the kids had to take his class, just a feel. They just took it for a fill-in, just something to have to go and skip and not have a class really, and they thought they could get through it without doing much work. But I hope you guys get out of it what I did. Sorry. There was a certain professor of religion named Dr. Christensen. He taught in a small college in western United States. Dr. Christensen taught a required survey course in Christianity. At this particular institution, every student, regardless of what they took, regardless of what major they were in or whatever, had to take his class their freshman year. Although Dr. Christensen tried hard to communicate the essence of the gospel in his class, he found that it was mostly his students looked upon the course as nothing but a required drudgery despite his best efforts of trying to get the students involved and engaged into what he was trying to communicate to them, he couldn't. He just couldn't. He said this year Dr. Christensen had a special student named Steve. Steve was the only freshman, but he was studying with the intent to go into the seminary for the ministry. Steve was a popular, well-liked, big guy. He was an opposing physical specimen. He was the starting center for the football team and one of the best students in the professor's class, or was the best one. One day, Dr. Christensen asked Steve to stay after class. He wanted to talk to him. So he asked him, how many push-ups can you do? Steve said, I do about 200 every night. And the professor said, 200? That's pretty good. Do you think you could do 300? And Steve thought a minute and he said, I don't know. I've never done 300 at one time. So he said, what do you think you could? Dr. Christensen asked Steve. He said, well, I can try. And Dr. Christensen said, can you do 300 in sets of 10? I have a class project in mind, and I need you to do about 300 push-ups in sets of 10 for this to work. And he asked Steve, can you do it? I need you to tell me that you can do it, said the professor. And Steve said, well, I think I can. Yeah, I can do it. Dr. Christensen said, good. I need you to do it this Friday. Let me explain what I have in mind. So he's telling him what he's got planned. Friday came, and Steve got to the class early and ran down front, got in the front of the classroom. When the class started, the professor pulled out a box of donuts. They weren't the normal kind of donuts. They were the big fancy kind with the filling and the icing and the sprinkles, and had a whole box of those. Everyone was pretty excited that Friday because it was their last class. They were going to get an early start on the weekend with a party in Dr. Christensen's class. That's what they thought. Dr. Christensen went to the first girl in the first row and asked, Cynthia, do you want one of these donuts? And she said yes. So Dr. Christensen turned to Steve and said, Steve, will you do 10 push-ups for Cynthia so she can have that donut? Steve said, sure. Steve jumped down from his desk, quickly done 10. Steve jumped back up, sat at his desk. Dr. Christensen pulled out a donut and laid it on Cynthia's desk. Dr. Christensen went on to the next person, which was Joe. I asked Joe, do you want a donut? Joe said yes. Dr. Christensen said, Steve, will you do 10 push-ups for Joe that he can have a donut? Steve said, 10 push-ups? Sure. So he done 10 push-ups. He got back up and sat back down. Joe got a donut, set it on his desk. And so it went. Down the first aisle, Steve done 10 push-ups for every person before they got their donut. Down the second aisle till Dr. Christensen come up on a gentleman named Scott. Scott was on the basketball team. He was in good condition. He was very popular, never lacking for any physical impurities. He was well conditioned. When the professor asked Scott, do you want a donut? Scott's reply was, well, can I do my own push-ups? Dr. Christensen said, no. Steve has to do them. Then Scott said, well, I don't want one then. Dr. Christensen shrugged his shoulders, turned to Steve and asked, Steve, will you do 10 push-ups for Scott so he can have the donut that he doesn't want? With perfect obedience, Steve got up, dropped down, done 10 push-ups. Scott said, hey, I said I didn't want one. Dr. Christensen looked at his class, My class, he said, this is my classroom. This is my class, my desk. These are my donuts. Just leave it on the desk if you don't want it. And he put a donut on Scott's desk. Now by this time, Steve had begun to slow down. He had been doing some push-ups. He just stayed on the floor in between the sets because it took too much effort to get up and down. You could start to see a little bit of perspiration coming around his brow. Dr. Christensen started down the third row. Now students were beginning to get a little angry. Dr. Christensen asked Jenny, do you want a donut? Sternly, Jenny said no. Then Dr. Christensen asked Steve, would you do 10 more push-ups for Jenny so Jenny can have a donut that she doesn't want? Steve did 10. Jenny got a donut. By now, a growing sense of uneasiness has filled the room. The students were beginning to say no. And all there were all these uneaten donuts on desks. Steve also had really put forth a lot of extra effort to get these push-ups done for each of these donuts. There began to be a small pool of sweat on the floor beneath his face. If I was doing them, it wouldn't be a small pool. It would have been bad. His arms and brow began to be red because of the physical effort involved. Dr. Christensen started down the fourth row. During his class, however, some students from other classes had wandered in and sat down on the steps along the radiators and ran down the sides of the room. When the professor realized this, he did a quick count and saw that now there were 34 students. And he told Steve all he had to do was 300. He started to worry if Steve would be able to make it. Dr. Christensen went on to the next person and the next person. And near the end of the row, Steve was really having a rough time now. He started taking a lot more time to complete each set of 10. A few moments later, Jason, a recent transfer, came into the room. And all the students yelled in one big voice, "No, don't come in. Stay out." Jason didn't know what was going on. Steve picked up his head and said, "No, let him come in." Professor Christensen said, "You realize if Jason comes in, you will have to do 10 push-ups for him." And Steve, which he already knew what was going on, he had done been told by the professor, he said, "Yes, let him come in and give him a donut." Dr. Christensen said, "Okay, Steve, I'll let you get Jason out of the way right now." So Steve done the 10 push-ups for Jason. And he asked Jason, he said, "Jason, do you want a donut?" Jason, new to the room, hardly knew what was going on. He said, "Sure, give me a donut." Steve would do 10 push-ups so Jason can have his donut. Steve did the 10 push-ups very, very slowly now with great effort. Jason was bewildered when he was handed the donut and sat down. Dr. Christensen finished the fourth row. Then he started with the visitors that had come in and sat down by the heaters. Steve's arms now were shaking each push-up. He was struggling to lift himself up again. The force of gravity was really weighing on him. Sweating profusely, dropping off his face at the time. There was no sound except heavy breathing. There were no dry eye in the room. There was not a dry eye in the room. The very last two students in the room were two young women, both cheerleaders, very popular. Dr. Christensen asked Linda, second to the last, "Linda, do you want a donut?" And she said very sadly, "No, thank you." Professor Christensen quietly asked Steve, "Steve, would you do 10 push-ups so that Linda can have a donut that she doesn't want?" Grunting from the effort, Steve did 10 more very, very slow push-ups for Linda. Then Dr. Christensen turned to the last girl. Her name was Susan. "Susan, do you want a donut?" Susan, with tears flowing down her face, began to cry. Dr. Christensen said, she said to Dr. Christensen, "Why can't I help him?" Dr. Christensen already had tears of his own. Said, "No, Steve has it all to do alone. I have given him a task, and he is in charge of seeing that everyone has the opportunity for a donut, whether they want it or not. When I decided to have this party the last day of class, I took my grade book and looked in it. Steve is the only student with a perfect grade. Everyone else had failed a test, skipped a class, offered me inferior work. Steve told me that when a player messes up in football practice, he must do push-ups. I told Steve that none of you would come to my party unless he paid the price for doing your push-ups. He and I made a deal for your sakes. Steve, would you do 10 push-ups for Susan so that she can have a donut that she doesn't want? As Steve very slowly finished his last push-ups, with the understanding that he had accomplished all that he was required from him, having done 350 push-ups, his arms buckled beneath him and he fell to the floor. Dr. Christensen turned to the room and said, "And so it was that our Savior, Jesus Christ, on the cross, pled to the Father, 'Into thy hands I commit my spirit,' with the understanding that he had done everything that was required of him. He yielded up his life. And like some of those in the room, many of us leave the gift laying on the desk." The two students helped Steve up off the floor to a seat, physically exhausted but wearing a thin smile. "Well done, my good and faithful servant," said the professor, adding, "Not all sermons are preached in words." Turning to the class, the professor said, "My wish is that you might understand and fully comprehend all the riches of grace and mercy that has been given to you through the sacrifice of your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for all of us, now and forever. Whether or not you choose it or accept it, the gift is there. The price has been paid. Would you be foolish and ungrateful to leave it laying on the desk?" And that's the end of it. But I guess that's why I knew how it ended. But that's what happens in the world today. People, the gift is there, and people are so busy and they don't think about it. They don't, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's just like Kelly Queen yesterday. I mean, he had a stroke. I prayed to the Lord that he was ready. I mean, you can't count on the next second. You can't count on the next minute. You just don't, you can't. You have to be prepared. If you're not prepared, and it's there for you. And it took an illustration of a donut on a desk to get those 35 kids in that classroom to understand what that professor had been trying to preach to them for the whole year. But once they seen it in that layout, they understood that they could see that Steve was suffering and he was punishing for them, and they didn't even want the donut. But we just have to ask ourselves, are we ready? Because things happen in the blink of an eye. You're not guaranteed your next breath. I don't know how else to explain it. But I wanted to share that with you. When I do a class or a lesson, I try to find something that speaks to myself. And I've looked for a couple of weeks. That's the reason I hadn't done one in a while. I just don't want to read one. I want to myself. I want it to speak to me. And that really did. It's sort of like the other two that I've done. I thought that they spoke to me, and I'm not sure that it speaks to everyone, but I thought it was a great illustration of what the Christ has done for us, and how sometimes we don't appreciate it, and sometimes a lot of people don't even get the message. They don't even understand what was done, and what they're leaving on their desk, what they're leaving is unmeasurable. You just can't measure it. There's no measurement that you could put on it. That's a gentleman asked this really rich guy. He said, "Would you give me $10 million?" He said, "Sure, under one condition." He said, "If I give you $10 million, you have to give up your life tomorrow." And the gentleman said, "No, I don't want your $10 million. He said, "Well, your life is worth more than $10 million. How much is your life worth for Jesus Christ? What He's done, what the Lord gave, and I couldn't have done it. There's no way that I could give my son for a stranger. I could give my life for a stranger, but I couldn't give my son's life for a stranger. That's why He's the Lord. That's why He's got His plan. That's why it's out there. That's why it's so imperative that people listen and understand what has been done for them to be able to go to heaven. I don't know. I sure wouldn't want to be going to hell. Just what you can read about in the Bible, that's enough for me. I don't need to see it. I don't want to be close to it. It's not a place that is going to be pleasant. But I mean, I have had people and I have heard people say that that's where they're going. They want to be there with their friends. I'm just telling you, I'd rather be with my Lord and my family up in heaven than I sure would be anywhere close to hell. And I don't know that that's true. I don't know if that's just them being boastful. But if they don't understand what they're in for, I don't know anybody that would want that, knowingly want that. But just like Brother Bob and Shannon and Frank, everybody always says, someone at this church, if somebody comes and wants to be baptized, it doesn't matter what time we're at, what time of day, what time of night. Brother Bob, if he's in town, he would be here. No doubt. We have come on Sunday nights, we've come on Saturdays, we've come on Fridays, Mondays, Wednesdays. It doesn't matter what time, day or night. I know Brother Bob's done it at the hospital. He's done it at assisted living facilities. He's done it anywhere and everywhere he could have it done. So that's not a reason not to be saved. If anybody needs to be saved, they need to come and be saved and take that prize that's been laid out for them, that the Lord had His big plan, and it's just laying there ready for them to be able to get a hold of and go to heaven and be with Him and see the sights. Like Brother Bob, I'd be in awe to be able to see what they say heaven looks like. And I don't even know, and I know Brother Bob and I have talked, Shannon, about how to describe heaven. I don't know that there's earthly words that probably can explain or describe what will be waiting for us, but I sure want to be there. That's for sure. Well, we'll do 9:45 will be our closing song. We'll do 1 and 3 to kneel at the cross. I'm sorry, it was a little short, but like I said, it was just something that really touched me, and I just wanted to share with everybody, and that way they could see what some people leave. They leave the prize laying there instead of grabbing hold of it and being ready for sure. Okay, we'll sing verses 1 and 3. Can we all stand? Well, I sure would like to thank everybody for being here and listening to me. Thank you, Lucas, for grabbing the prayer cards. We just need the announcements. I know the biggest announcement we have right now is practice Friday evening. What time is it, Connie? 5. Okay. Practice here at Friday at 5, and then Ladies' Day will be at 9 a.m. Starts at 9 a.m. Saturday morning. And like I said, if you miss it, I hope and pray everybody comes. It's going to be a great time. I've seen it. I've seen the whole program, and it is a very, very, very good program. It is awesome. The singing, the skit, and I can only imagine how good the speaker will be from just what people have told. I've never heard her, but I'm sure that she's going to be an awesome speaker. I just invite everybody that you can, and tell everybody that you can to be here, because it'll be a good day. Okay, we'll ask Brother Roger, if you don't mind, to dismiss us tonight.